From the ABC 27 Storm Track Center, it's time to go beyond the forecast.
Well, good evening and welcome to our fifth installment of Beyond the Forecast. I'm meteorologist Ryan Coyle.
And I'm meteorologist Eric Finkenbinder. Now, these seasonal half-hour shows gives our weather team the chance to talk about our local weather and climate separate from the daily newscast. Now, so far, we've talked about tropical systems, the science of climate change, and severe weather in the mid-state. Tonight's show will focus more on the climate of south central Pennsylvania, more specifically, the climates.
Yeah, the climate data that we use in our weathercast is recorded at the Harrisburg International Airport. But we live in a region filled with mountains, valleys, large cities, small towns, and plenty of agriculture in between. All of these have an effect on our climate, and that's what we're focusing on this evening, to locate the regions that have slightly different climates.
And in order to find these microclimates, we need to first look at the structure of the land. Our friends at the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources were happy to show us the geographical regions of south central PA. Gary Flieger is the chief of the Stratigraphic Studies section of the Geological Mapping Division of the Geological Survey. In order to find the geological regions of south central Pennsylvania, we first need to understand how it was formed.
Several times there have been mountain building events to the east and southeast of Pennsylvania, and when those mountains were raised, they started to erode and the sediment was transported into what's now south central Pennsylvania and deposited as sediment. There were many thousands of feet of sediment were deposited, and as the sediment was buried, it was turned into rock. During the last mountain building episode, North America and Africa collided, and it folded the rocks from the pressure of the two colliding continents, just similar to when a rug is crumpled when you push on it. Here's an example of a folded rock.
There are several locations where you can view examples of the folding rock, including this small fold along Route 322 just as you enter the Lewistown Narrows. Erosion of this sediment over 150 to 200 million years resulted in two broad geological regions.
There are two main distinct regions. One would be the Ridge and Valley, which is an area of long linear ridges and intervening valleys. And the other part of south central Pennsylvania would be the Piedmont, which is separated into two areas based on their origin.
When you add a variety of weather conditions to these two provinces, we find four specific areas, each with its own climate. The narrow ridges and valleys of Perry, Mifflin, Juniata, and northern Dauphin counties, the Great Valley, South Mountain, and the low-lying Piedmont of Lancaster and York counties. We learn a little about each section, starting with the Ridge and Valley.
It's an arcuate region of long linear ridges, narrow ridges, and intervening valleys. The ridges are made up of hard rocks that are resistant to erosion, such as sandstone, and the intervening valleys are soft rocks, which are not resistant to erosion, and that's why they're the low areas. They're mostly shale and limestone type rocks. The Great Valley is a very wide, long valley that goes from up in New York all the way down to northern Georgia or Alabama. It's an area that's fairly low relief because since it's a valley, it's obviously underlain by rocks that are easily eroded. South Mountain is the northern terminus of the Blue Ridge that goes all the way down to northern Georgia. It's fairly low and broad up in this area, and actually gets much wider down in the Great Smoky Mountain area. The Piedmont in south central Pennsylvania is divided into two areas. The southern part is a core of former mountains, and that area is largely in York and Lancaster counties. Those mountains have since been eroded, and we just have some low rolling hills remaining. Just to the north or northwest of that is an area that passes through Gettysburg, Adams County, and northern York, southern Dauphin. And that is an area that's a rift basin that was formed when the continents of Africa and North America separated. The mountains on either side of that were eroding and sediment was washing into that basin, which has been filled in now. So the topography of both sections is very similar, and then you have low rolling hills.
Now that we identified the different geological regions, it's up to the ABC 27 Storm Track Center team to show you how the climate can vary in each 4 of these locations.
And that's exactly what we plan to show you coming up next on Beyond the Forecast.
Yeah, stick around to see how the weather interacts with the land and what type of climate you experience in your backyard.
Plus, Dan is at the beach? Well, not exactly, but he gets all sciencey as he explains how the Atlantic Ocean plays a big role in our climate. Stay with us.